Welcome to the Outer Realm with MicheleDerocher and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been with us for the last several years and hoping that they'll be with us for the next several to come. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, for the contribution of the intro you just heard. Isn't that awesome? I love it. Anyway, he is an award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your music streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, but does phenomenal, and I mean phenomenal, commission pieces of any sort. So tonight, I've been looking forward to this. We welcome the return of, well, our dear friends, my dear friends, and special guest, Jack Roth, and hopefully Jon Sumple. There's in the middle of a storm right now and waiting for the power to come back on. So hopefully he'll pop in at some point during the show. And then the gang will be all here, which should be fantastic. But both of the guys are experiences of various levels of high strangeness. And it put them on a journey, if you will, that led to the creation of the extraordinary documentary series, which is on Amazon. And of course, we'll let Jack talk about that a little bit more as we move along once we get to that point. As you guys have been on it, you've seen them, and you know it's just amazing. But in order to participate, guys, remember, we're like a super highway kind of coming down to one lane. We are simultaneously on 8 different platforms. Roku TV does not have a chat room. For those of you who are in X and Rumble, I can see your comments. So please do not hesitate to join into the chat. And of course, YouTube, Facebook, all of that. So Adrian, so nice to see you here tonight. Hello, Heidi, our social media champ. And her compadre, another social media champ, Mark. Hello. I know it is good morning. You are a champ because it's like 2:15 in the morning in the UK. Just love you for being here. Thank you. Love you all for being here. You guys are phenomenal. Hey, Kurt, how are you? Hello. God, just so lucky. I'm just starting and you guys just go crazy. So right now, yeah, John's still reporting no power. So fingers crossed. Hopefully he'll get here. If not, you know it's going to be a fantastic show. And you can look for John to join me on a different segment talking about sky people. And I know you guys love that. So anyway, without further ado, our special guest and my dear friend, Jack Roth. Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, I'm glad you have your power going on.
Yeah. We're good here. It's sunny. Well, it's dark now, but I'm in Florida. No thunderstorms right now. So yeah, we're good to go. I'll hold down the fort.
All right, taking one for the team.
Right.
Outstanding. Well, we've talked about, you've been on so many shows with us, which has been wonderful, and we've talked about various things that have happened here and there. And we've never really gotten into the whole gambit and what specifically led you on the path to say, you know what, why don't we just do these documentaries? Why don't we just get into this and let this be a start? Because, in working with you, I kind of know what you like, what sort of just ignites that push. So where do you want to start with it?
Yeah. And first of all, thanks for having me back on. I always really enjoy coming on, Michelle, because you're such a great host.
Thank you.
And it's always fun, and it's always a great conversation. And I'm John and I had talked about this in advance, but like we always talk about the journey, and we love talking about it because everyone can relate. Everyone has a journey.
Mm-hmm.
They have a life journey, but when it comes to the paranormal and the outer realm and things that we discuss,
mm-hmm.
there's always those things that happen and that get you down a certain path. And then sometimes you go down another path, and it's almost like and what winds up happening, at least for me, it's very synchronistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that there's a grand design to a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore I love talking about it, just to set the stage. And it has been an incredible journey for John and I, and individually as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to start. I always go back to 1995 is when it all started for me. And then shortly thereafter, John. So what would happen, I'd always been interested in the idea of ghosts and UFOs. At that point, I'd never seen a UFO. I'd never had any kind of ET experience. I really never had any ghost experiences. So,
right.
But I feel like that was part of being in a paradigm where I was closed off to it for the most part.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden now I wasn't so closed off anymore. So I had this urge, and again, talk about synchronicities.
Yes.
I talked to a couple friends of mine I was working with in South Florida at the time, and John was one of them, but he couldn't make the trip. It was Memorial Day weekend, 1995. And we decided we were going to take a road trip, rent a van, and drive from Fort Lauderdale to New Orleans. And we're going to spend one night in New Orleans, and then we're going to spend the second night at a place called the Myrtles Plantation.
Oh boy.
And so, and people know the name. And this was before it got really popular.
Yes.
I had read about the Myrtles in an old book written about Southern ghosts, and these really interesting stories, dating back to the early 1900s and the late 1800s. And so I was fascinated. I knew it was haunted. I know it was considered one of the most haunted. Heather, I'm going to get her in on this. She's going to be part of this conversation. So
I can send her a link.
So anyway, so I went with the group of people. I was into photography at the time, and I had a film camera, 35 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And anywhere I went, I always took photos. So I had black and white color photos. And when we had a great time in New Orleans, right? You partied, had fun. And then we got to the Myrtles, and almost immediately when we got to the Myrtles, stuff started happening. I walked up the steps because I went to the room, and we had checked in, and then people started just to walk around the plantation grounds, and it was only us. So there's about 5 or 6 of us. And when I walked upstairs, I heard children giggling, and I was like, oh, did I just hear that? Because there were no children there, but it was specific. I knew what it was.
It's a lovely thing.
Right. So I start taking pictures around me of the plantation, et cetera, et cetera. Had a couple things happen while I was there that was like, oh, people experience little things. We smelled cigar smoke that came out of nowhere. And so it was like, okay, it was definitely a cool experience. But when I got back to Fort Lauderdale and I got the film developed, that's when everything changed. And I got a color photo and a black and white photo. I got which ones did I do first? I think I got the color photo first. And in that photo, you see the outline, energetic light outline of what looks like a torso, half of a torso, head, hair, and arm and specifically, if I can show you, hopefully on this part, like you could see this part, like when the bend in the arm, and it's like of a little girl running out of frame, but it's all light. All right, so there's no features or anything, but it's the light outline of a little girl. And again, I heard little girl giggling, so I'm like, that's I was trying to say, what could it be? Could it have been a reflection? Could it have been blah blah blah? A couple of days later, I got my black and white photos back, and on the front porch, clear as day, is a full apparition of what looked like a woman in a black woman in a white turban and a dress, right on one of the wrought iron pillars in the front.
This is your first time.
This is my first time.
Wow, and that doesn't set the stage for more.
And here's the thing. So I was working with Jon at this place at the time. It was a marketing place.
Yeah.
And we were both doing writing early in our careers. And listen, what I had to know more at that point. I was like, this is not, those two photos changes everything. Yes. Because now I have to find out everything I can about ghosts, what they are, what they could be. Were they residual hauntings? Were they, genuine hauntings of spirit? What was going on? Who was communicating? Who was trying to communicate with me while I was there? And that I couldn't, that was it. Like I was like, I have to find out more. So long story short, we got in touch with a parapsychologist. It was actually William Roth, University of North Carolina, at the Rhine Institute. And he was very nice. And he got back to us because I had told Jon, and Jon saw the photos and just like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. So we wanted to show him. And he said, you know what? I have a friend of mine who a parapsychologist, really good when he lives in Gainesville. He teaches at Santa Fe College, and he'll look at them and go meet with him. Yes. And we wound up meeting with this guy, and he looked at the photos and he said, I've seen 1 million photos. And, parapsychologists, they're PhDs, so they're scientific in nature, by nature.
Yes.
So they like, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be that. And the one of the apparition on the front porch is, this is as good as the Raynham Hall photo. Yes. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, this is something's.
Yeah.
At that point, there's something deep down inside you that says, am I meant for more than what my life has been so far? And something was tugging at me. So, and I knew it intuitively because I've learned over the years as well, you follow your intuition and you don't overthink things. You just follow your intuition and good things are going to happen. So that's how it started. So it started in 1995 at the Myrtles with basically hauntings, ghost stuff.
So I mean, you have so many people who go out, the very first time. And I mean, some of the real seasoned researchers don't go out the very first time and get something. It's just, they say, in paranormal research, you spend more time just sitting there drinking coffee to keep yourself awake in some aspects because things they just don't happen on demand. And here you go the first time and you get like the manic picture that set the stage for what was to start your path.
That's just absolute ridiculous photo. I mean,
the
Raynham Hall photo, it's one of the best photos apparently, according to a lot of parapsychologists and researchers of all time. So
there's Jon.
So anyway, so that, and what followed that was research. And now all of a sudden we're going to, we're going back to New Orleans. We're going back to the Myrtles. Now, this is something that's one of those synchronistic moments. The second time we go to the Myrtles, we go with Jon. Jon and I go together.
Yes.
And we meet this wonderful family, a group of people who are also staying at the Myrtles that weekend. And do you ever meet people that you just become fast friends? They're like family in 5 minutes.
Yes.
And this is synchronicity, right? So we love these people. They were the Claytons, the Vanessa, and all. They know who they are. And this is Heather's family.
Yes.
Well, we didn't know at the time. Heather was 10. And again, this is 1995, 96, whatever it is. And she's there with some of the other cousins. And, I'm like, hey, little kids running around. I like kids. So whatever, and so, we were 20 years older. So, we're like, and they were great kids. And so we get to know this family and we have other things happen. We got our first EVP. We got a couple of EVPs when we were there. So Jon and I are now hooked. And now we also have these new friends. Remember this family and remember Heather being 10 years old, because we're going to come back to that. Okay. So now we start moving on. A year or two later, we had decided we were going to shoot footage to put together a reel for a TV show, a conceptualized, video for a TV show. And it was based on, because we had met these parapsychologists. So we wanted to combine the parapsychologists with 2 or 3 really good psychic mediums and go to different places in and around New Orleans, because now all of a sudden we were going to New Orleans and now more things were happening. So this was the weekend we went. That was the second changed our lives, because the things that happened that weekend we just couldn't explain away. And we met a couple of really good psychic mediums. And the footage we got was just incredible. Now, unfortunately, that never led to anything. And what's funny is it was ahead of its time, because eventually you have all these shows now where you go into places with a team, right? And you have the psychics and you have the science, the parapsychologists and all that, all the equipment. And then you do the research after to see if you can get any confirmation of what was picked up on. And this was all the shows that you see now. That was the idea we had in mind. So I started to go to cities like Charleston, Savannah, St. Augustine, Gettysburg. It was more me at that time that I couldn't stop. And I have to learn more. I have to know more.
Yeah, but you went to the best places. I mean, we did.
And I started actually taking groups of people to Gettysburg and some of these other cities for weekend events. So I kind of made it a little bit of, and it wasn't really for the money because I didn't make good money, but it basically paid for my travel. But I had to host the weekend event, and I started doing these in Gettysburg over and over and over again. And that's why I wrote my first book, Ghost Soldiers of Gettysburg, because of all that documentation over the course of 7 years of going to Gettysburg. So that's what started me down the book. Jon and I, I'm a writer by trade. I went to journalism school. And I always wanted to write a book, but I never knew what those books would be. So there you are. It's Gettysburg, and it's about people's experiences, real experiences, all documented. And that's like the second phase of this. Right. And I'm learning so much about parapsychology and the paranormal and what a ghost could be and In the meantime, you have experiences, and you get more and more in tune, and you become, I say more psychic. We all have it in us, but you become more in tune to that. So more and more things start happening to you. You become more sensitive. And you start to figure things out in your head of like, who's communicating with me? Why are they communicating with me? What did I just experience? Right. So I'll stop there, and we can chat more.
No. Just go. Yeah.
So that's where we got. And Jon and I had always, because when we shot this footage, we shot like over 40 hours of footage in New Orleans. It was incredible.
Yes. Well, New Orleans is highly strange, to say the least.
Absolutely. Ridiculous when you think about New Orleans.
It's
I
true.
know you know this.
Well, aside from the paranormal, you're getting into like a lot of like the vampire lore. People report seeing things jumping in from like off of rooftops and sort of cornering people, and people have reported being attacked. And then you have the story of the Count Saint Germain, who was last seen in New Orleans. And that's a story that spans, some believe, right to the times of Christ, like this crazy stuff. But New Orleans is one of those places that have it all. You get some places that are well known for just Gettysburg. We know what it's known for. Getting into Savannah, we know what it's known for. Then you're getting into, what to expect. And New Orleans is one of those places that has a mix of culture and just insane amounts of paranormal activity. My daughter was there and she said, that's crazy. Like, she's really intuitive. She goes around every bloody corner, there's something. Then I remember a story that she said from one of the local tour guides who does the big tours. There was a couple staying at one of the hotels in downtown New Orleans, and they're just like, oh, we never had anything happen to us. This is all hyped up. Anyway, when they got home about 2 weeks later, they decided to go through their pictures. Meanwhile, there's one picture in there that they had no explanation for. Someone or something had taken a picture of them while they were asleep from the ceiling.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just like awkward.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's insane. That's incredible.
Right?
It's like it's the New York City of paranormal activity. It's like if going down, like Broadway. It's like there's so much history. And that's what that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people living in different times, whether they're genuine hauntings and the spirits are lingering or there, or they're residual hauntings from all the very emotional events that have occurred in New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's, epidemics, yellow fever epidemics, war, fire, death, murder. I mean, you can name it. Yes. So anyways, so we were determined, and I told Jon, and in the meantime, I moved back to Orlando. Jon was in Fort Lauderdale. We were going on with our lives. We were kind of basically enhancing our skill sets as writers anyway, but we were doing it in other mediums. But I was always like, Jon, we're going to do documentaries. We are, because I'm determined to do it. And he wanted to do it. And he was always into directing, and he had done some corporate videos, and he was like, I really want to do this. So what wound up happening is a couple years later, we were chatting and I said, let's go ahead. I always wanted to do a documentary, but a very low budget kind of travel doc.
Yes.
And do it as we rent an RV, get a specific group of people together in the RV and go all over the state of New Mexico to all the UFO hotspots. Right. So you got Roswell, right? Like the plains of San Augustine, Los Alamos, Dolce. I mean, it's all, New Mexico is amazing when it comes to that. So there's a lot to go and see there. So it was going to be like this travel log. It would be a good documentary for us to do. And I had gone out to Colorado to see Stephen Greer speak, because now I'm going headlong into ufology, UFO research, ufologists, all that stuff. And I had always been interested in it. I always say that I used to read UFO Report when I was a kid. And I remember getting it every month, and I would be so excited to see the black and white photos of the old, those old daylight disc photos that were incredible, reading about Betty and Barney Hill and all these early abduction cases. So I was, always interested. And so Jon's like, it's a great idea. So I go out to this event. I'm listening to Stephen Greer, and these two researchers come up to me and say, hey, they were helping put on the event. And they're like, we start chatting. One thing leads to another. Again, synchronicity. And I'm like, what, they asked me why I was there. I'm like, we want to do a documentary and blah, blah. We're trying to figure out exactly what that documentary is going to be. And they're like, well, we have the story for you. It's a story you're not going to believe it. And that's when they introduced me to the Stan Romanek story. Yes. And that's when they showed me things that weekend. They were investigators on that case.
Wow.
And I saw things that if you thought my Myrtles photos were cool, this was ridiculous. I mean, this blew my mind. And intuitively, when you know something's real. Yes. And you're like, I know this isn't fake. I know this is the real deal. Oh my God, this guy's being abducted by ET. And one thing led to another. Over time, we met Stan, talked to him, blah, blah, blah. We made the documentary. had some incredibly strange experiences while we were doing the documentary. We had some very strange phone calls that would connect us via landlines, cell phones, you name it. It connected 3 people in all different parts of the country at the same time. Very high technology. And some of the things that they were saying, it was like a computerized voice. And to me, it was probably both, but I think it was the government, when you say black ops, whatever you want to call it, because they had been following Stan forever. But I also think we were communicating with ETs, because we got some of these calls and they would use phrasing like, "It's how you would say," and then they would say it. And it's like, oh my God. And then Stan was getting these phone calls from his hybrid children, and there was a photo of one of them, and her name was Kioma, and it blew my mind. That was the first photo I saw, and I'm like, this girl is real. She's the real deal. And again, your intuition takes over. And I knew a thing or two about photography, so I knew what to look for. So now we're into documentary filmmaking. Meantime, so all these things are happening to us, though. So now it's like someone said, if you get involved in this, those guys told, if you get involved in this, you're in it.
You can't undo it.
Your life is going to change forever.
That's true.
Because first of all, ghosts are different. It's a different area than UFOs. Ghosts are ghosts. Okay. And here's what I mean by that. No one's going to kill you over a ghost photograph, but you will get men in black show up in your house if you see something you shouldn't see when it comes to UFOs. This is something that's secret. It's something that matters to the government in a very, very strong and powerful way, and they're covering it up. So that makes it dangerous. We found that out because we knew our phones were being bugged.
Wow. Crazy.
So we were like, okay, they were right. We're in it. We're in it. And of course, as this is happening, then I'm getting I was becoming more and more sensitive, if you will. And but in the meantime, while all this is happening, we go to the Myrtles once a year or two. We meet with this family. Heather, didn't see again. She was growing up as a teenager, doing her thing.
Too cool to go on vacay with parents. I remember going through that.
But very close with her aunts and uncles, just like brothers and sisters.
Yes.
It's that close. And so now I'm meeting all these people. I'm going to all these UFO conferences. I'm meeting people like Richard Dolan and all these incredible UFO researchers and ufologists, brilliant people. And might I add, and this is a misconception people have, between the ghost researching.
I know that.
Yeah, there's that nice photo. There you go. So she's
gotta love her. Gotta love her.
Me. So I've met some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life between doing the ghost stuff and the UFO stuff. You're talking about PhDs, quantum physicists, parapsychologists, psychologists, like very, very, very smart people who are trying to figure all this stuff out. And you learn so much, and you learn and you grow and you open yourself up. So this is all happening, and we decide. I met this one guy, Bill Schroeder, at an event at a conference, which is where I saw my first UFO, while I was standing next to Stan Romanek and his then wife, Lisa, dear person, and my buddy Scott and I, and we see this triangular craft fly over us. It was nighttime, and it had the 3 lights on each end of the point of the triangle. And it was stealth. You couldn't hear it. And it was in Sebring, Florida, which is in the middle of Florida between the 2 coasts. So, and there's military bases on both coasts. Sebring is in the middle. So now I have my first UFO sighting experience, which is no coincidence that who I was standing next to, because all that stuff is as true as it gets. And as real as it gets. And so I met this other guy and I start writing his story. That was my second book. It's called Unknown Down. And he was in the military in the 1960s during the Cold War. He was stationed in Miami, and his cousin was stationed. His cousin was stationed in Miami, and he was stationed in Key West. And there was a UFO flap in 1967 in South Florida. And it was the story about what they were both radar operators. So they tracked these craft on radar going 5,000 miles an hour and doing these amazing things. And so I met a lot of military people, and these are the best witnesses you can ever have. And you're talking about guys now in their 70s who tough guys who've been in Vietnam and different wars, and they're crying, telling you their stories about their UFO experiences and how they got, it was completely covered up. They're all transferred to different bases around the world. You don't talk about it. They threaten you with Leavenworth or worse. So now I'm at the point, right, Michelle, that you've been at this point for a while. You can't trust the government. Everything's a cover up, or at least a lot of things are. And it's a cover up for a reason, because this is serious business, especially when it comes to the ETs, contact, UFOs, abductions. There's stuff going on that most people wouldn't even want to know about. So I'm in this world now, and I'm like, okay, well, let's keep going. We made 2 more documentaries, the Extraordinary series, Stan Romanek Story. And then we made The Seeding, which was about women having these pregnancies and no explanation for the pregnancies. And then they're not pregnant. And then 7 years later, they're meeting their 7-year-old hybrid children on board craft. And this is like serious stuff. And then we did Revelations, which was the 3rd and final in that trilogy. It was
a great series.
I appreciate that. We were really proud of it. John did an amazing job with the
absolutely wonderful series.
And again, though, while you're doing these things, you're having experiences that are changing your life. And so I had wrote Bill's book. I wrote it. I wrote his story. So basically I wrote it. He told me the story, and that was Unknown Down. And so then, we're like, okay, what's next? And that's leads us up through, like 7 years. I have to go back because this is
you take your time. You go wherever you want.
I don't want to confuse your listeners, but let's go back.
We got a great group. We can keep up
to the point where we finish our first film. We distribute it. Okay, we find a distributor, a really good distributor, and it used to be 1091 Media, and that's not anymore. But we had distribution for that, and then they wanted to know what else we had, so we went out to Los Angeles and we had a meeting with them, and I suggested that we do a trilogy, like an extraordinary trilogy, and they were all over it. So they was like, you got it, you got distribution, we'll try to give you some upfront money, blah blah blah. So it was a big deal thing for us. And so John and I are out in LA now. At the time, John's in Seattle, he's living there. I'm living in Orlando. Okay, this story is one of those stories that it's hard to tell because I can't mention names, but
this is the best part.
This is one of those synchronistic stories that every one of your listeners right now is going to understand, because at some point in their lives, something like this has happened to them. We're out in LA. And I've been to LA. Just a little background. When I was younger, I worked in the sound department on a couple films. My Girl, Doc Hollywood. I worked. I wasn't. I was very used to celebrity. They didn't scare me. I wasn't whatever. And I also wasn't a fanboy. I didn't get excited, overly excited, because they're people, and a lot of them are great people. But they're people. And they're just like all the rest of us. So, and once you get that in your head, it makes it easier for you to, just be in that environment. So I'm out there, and the whole time I'm out there in my head. Okay. Now I told you about me becoming more intuitive.
Yes.
In my head, my higher self keeps telling me, okay, you're going to meet this actress while you're out here. You're going to see her.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. And I'm thinking to myself, why do I keep thinking about this one particular person?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, she had been in some really cool TV shows, and she was, I wouldn't call her an A-lister, but people know who she is. But at the time, 8 years ago or so, going on 9, not many people knew her. She was not a household name by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm like, why am I thinking of her? Why am I not thinking of, like, you know, name an A-lister, Tom Cruise, you know, and I'm not that kind of person. So I really didn't really care so much about that, but couldn't get her out of my head the whole time. Going to meet her. So we're only there 2 days. And so now it's time to go home. John and I go to the airport. He's flying to Seattle, so he goes to his gate. I'm flying to Orlando. I go to my gate. I'm sitting there. Great trip, because we're making 2 more films now, so we're really excited.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there. I'm on my phone. I look up, and who is walking directly towards me? Yep. This person, this actress.
Yes.
And when I tell you, if in the cartoons in the old days, Bugs Bunny, when a spring used to come out of someone's head, when your mind just went boing, that's what happened. Because I knew at that moment that something incredibly significant was happening to me. I didn't know why, and I didn't know for what reason, but I knew enough because of everything that had happened leading up to this moment that there are synchronicities and that the universe does talk to you.
It does.
My intuition, my higher self, knew it. My ego part, the little devil on this shoulder, was like, "Ooh, what are you like?" Freaking out.
I did this.
Freaking out. Because like, what in the world is happening right now? She walks right by me. She's with a friend or someone. She was with a friend. This other girl might have been an assistant, but they were very casual. And they sit down. I'll never forget this. There was no seats, 2 seats together. So they sat down on the floor behind me. And one of the sky caps had come with a wheelchair. Said, "Oh, you can't sit here because the wheelchairs." She was so nice, so friendly. She's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah." And she got up, and I was about to give them my seat, because if I had gotten up, there was a seat next to me so the 2 of them can sit together. As soon as I was going to do that, 2 seats open up right across from me. This is at the gate. Okay. So I'm like, I couldn't. I'm like, I can't go up to her because I'm thinking, you're going to be a fanboy. What in God's name are you going to say to her? Nothing.
Hello.
You're not going to tell her what just happened in these last 2 days.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this voice, the good voice, the higher self is going, it's about the work. It's about the work. So that part of me is like, okay, this is about the work we're doing. So I know that. And then when I'm like, I can't, what do I do? What do I say to her? And then this calm voice, me, the higher self, me, is like, it's okay. This was just for recognition.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, I'm trying to be cool, probably not doing a very good job of it. I look up.
That's a tough one.
Now I look up.
Yeah.
Right. Try not to look at her at all. I look up, she's staring right at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? So now I'm like, all I can manage was probably the goofiest smile on the face of the earth. It was kind
of notice
funny.
how you just that's the best you could do.
That's the best I could do.
Where you're trying to be casual and cool, and you come out looking like Point Dexter.
Not good. Cliff Clavin from Cheers. I mean, not good. But there was recognition. When she looked at me, she's like, I felt like she was like, I know this guy.
Yeah.
And even though I knew who she was because she was famous, I felt a connection. And I was like, okay, so what am I doing here? What do I do? And I couldn't get myself to go up and say anything to her because I didn't want to come across as a fanboy. So which I'm not. Right. So long story short, we're at this gate for about half an hour. It's very busy, a lot of delays. And I find out that this now gate is not going to Orlando. Change gates. This gate's going to San Francisco. So I needed to go to a gate, and it was close and I had time.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, now I know this. They had gotten up and they started boarding. And I was like, okay, you know, I was torturing myself basically because I didn't know what to do. I didn't think I was doing the right thing. I was beating myself up. And I look back up, and now her and her friend are looking at me. Now I'm telling you, I did not stare at them. I did actually, I'm making fun of myself, but I was
actually a goofy face. Just
that one. But this time I just stared back because I'm like thinking to myself, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
So they get on the plane, and something very weird happens. I feel like I'm losing my best friend, and I'll get back to this. Okay. Yeah. A sense of loss. They're leaving, getting on an airplane.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never met him. I've never met her. Right. I was sad, like really sad. So I go to my gate, wind up going home, beat myself up.
Yeah.
The whole ride home. Make it a funny Thanksgiving. It was right before Thanksgiving. I make it a really funny Thanksgiving dinner story with my family. They're hysterical because I'm embellishing. I'm a writer. And I'm making myself look really foolish. Like I was like, you know, just Dudley Moore in 10 falling over a cliff, right? Just like the ridiculous, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was funny. And then what happened was that, and again, understand that during this whole time, John and I are still trying to develop stuff. We got this stuff in the pipeline. We're continuing to try to do stuff. All of a sudden I get this spurt of creativity that I've had since that day. And I have not stopped writing from that moment on. And I've wound up writing another, like a huge book, the JFK assassination book, which we talked about, that was published. And that's by far been my biggest book. And I've written 4 screenplays. Wow. And here's what my intuition part of me is telling me is almost like it was a muse situation. It was like you were meant. What that was telling you is that you belong there, and but you know her. So here's the thing that's going to blow your mind, and this is the best part of the story. We have to start shooting the second film because now we have distribution. We're making the second one, the seeding. Yes. So we rent a house in LA. And we're staying in Silver Lake, beautiful old home, really nice. But what we did was we had people come to us, whether we picked them up at the airport, to do all the interviews at the house because it was low budget. But we did a really good job of changing all the, their backgrounds and all. So we had to interview a bunch of people. So that's why we were there. And there was one woman who is still a great friend to this day. She's dear. Her name's Vivian Chauvet, and she's an amazing medium. She's actually a channeler. And I was always impressed with her ability. So we're there, and the last day of shooting, she comes up to me. And we had a break. So everyone was outside and was, whatever, blah, blah. She starts talking to me and she shows me this. It's a book. It's actually, it was in screenplay but it was a book. And it was a manuscript that her roommate had written. And it's a story about this female warrior who gets abducted. And then she's forced to fight throughout the galaxy in these arenas. She's like Valkyrie. And so it was very interesting. And there's a photo on the front and she's like, oh yeah. And we start talking about who might play, the mother might play, but they couldn't figure out who to play her. And I'm like, well, who could play her? And I just thought of her because it would work. And I said the name of this actress.
Yes.
And she's like, oh, this was her reaction. She goes, oh my God. And I'm like, what? Because you have to understand, I've been beating myself over this since it happened. It's been like 6-7 months. I still don't know why it happened.
Right.
Without me saying a word to her about it, she's like, you're connected. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? I don't know her. Because now I'm scared.
Right.
All right. And because this is just too much for me. And she's like, no. You know her. You're connected on a soul level. You've known each other before.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, you didn't talk to her, but did you have recognition? I'm like, yeah. That was my goofy smile, but that's when I,
that was the best I could do, but I was there.
Yeah. And she says, well, that's what was supposed to happen. That was supposed to be a moment of recognition, a point of recognition. And it triggered things in both of you. She's still wondering who the hell you were because you look familiar to her, even though she's never met you. And you now the same thing, but you also have been so creative ever since, like just going crazy creatively. So I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, what? And she starts telling me the kind of connection we have. And I'm like, and again, I didn't say anything to her. So again, these synchronicities, and it's all for a reason. It's all part of this journey. And I'm like, okay.
Everything's connected.
Everything's connected. Everything.
Yes.
Meantime, John's there, and Jon, we're best friends. I mean, we've known each other forever. He's dying. Like, he's like, oh my God, dude, like, you got to be kidding me. And, like, I'm like, oh, what? I can't tell too many people about this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take it higher self-wise and say, I'm going to take it for what it was. If I meet her again one day, but I did write a script with her as the lead. And I was inspired by that. And the first act is basically, part of it is what happens at the airport. It's like a meta drama.
Right.
Okay, so it's metaphysical drama, really cool story. And it's about how two people can come into each other's lives, even if it's for 2 weeks, and make a significant impact on each other's lives. And that's what soul connections are. So this is beautiful story. And I wrote it based on, what happened. So again, all this, right? This creativity, the juice is flowing. So after that, what Jon and I, again, developing. And then about 2 years ago, I get a call from Vanessa, and Vanessa's one of the family members from the Myrtles, the very close friends of ours.
Yeah.
And she says, hey, she says, do you remember my niece, Heather? She was at the Myrtles that time. She's about 10 years old. I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah. She's like, well, she has to talk to you. And I'm like, well, why? And she's like, because your cat, did you have a cat called Sophia? I'm like, oh yeah. Well, Sophia keeps coming to her and she has a message for you. So I'm like, all right, that caught my attention because Vanessa knew nothing about our cat. Yeah. So I'm like, and she had passed a couple of years earlier, and I was like, okay. So I went to I call her and we talk, and at that moment, everything changed again. Like I say, changed, but it just kept moving forward the way it was supposed to move forward.
Exactly.
And she is one of, if not the most amazing, not only a great person, but her psychic abilities are something I've never experienced before. And I've been around a lot of psychics. So, and some are great, some aren't that great.
That's true. I've worked with psychics from all over the world. Phenomenal people, but everybody's gift is different.
A little different.
Yeah.
So hers is just like straight out. They come to her, talk to her. Spirit comes to her, talks to her, and she tells you exactly. And she get literally when I say every name she's ever given, every bit of information has been right, dead on. So this is the full circle of all this. It's come to find out, now we start getting in the soul groups, right? Soulmates.
Yep.
Who they are, who we were in other lives. And the information that starts pouring in and the things you learn from that. And you know this, when it all comes together like that, you realize, okay.
Yeah.
And you're forever changed. You're totally leveled up psychically. I mean, totally leveled up from an intuitive standpoint. But you also understand the way you interact with other people changes. It becomes more about love. It becomes more about what life is really all about. And so here we are today, Heather, now for the last 2.5 years or so. She's like my best friend, and we talk all the time, and she's an amazing person. And we've gotten together, and it's always a discovery. Every time we're on the phone, more and more comes out. And so now we're at the point we're developing a screenplay into a film based on what I learned about a particular time period and a group of people we were associated with. And that's where we are. So all this ghost stuff then turned into UFO stuff, then turned back into ghost stuff. And now it's everything. And it's all intertwined because now we're getting messages from ETs that come through to Heather. And it's absolutely wild, as you know, because I know your experiences are wild. And they've been happening for a long time for you.
But isn't it funny how just everything comes full circle and here we are?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you just, when you are meant to have experiences, you will connect with people who have very similar experiences, because I believe people as such gravitate to one another. They just seem to find one another. Everyone has a role to play within certain journeys. If certain journeys are meant to happen, the right people come into play to make that journey happen,
right,
with it for the soul group or for whatever, even if it's just a passing thing. If it's meant to happen, everyone has to pretty much be of like mind to have an understanding.
And also knowing that there's more to come, and it's all synchronistic. So I'm expecting, I don't know exactly what to expect, but I just want to flow. I want to follow my intuition. I have to shout out my wife because she's been through all of this. She was at the Myrtles. We were actually engaged. In 1995. So we were engaged when we went to the Myrtles for the first time, and she had a couple experiences.
And she still married you?
And she's still married to me. And listen, I'm really, really popular at parties.
Yeah.
And I think that's what keeps her interested. Like, I am always like, I have the best stories, and like my life is very interesting. So like, and she has been able to grow as well through these experiences because she has been able to communicate with people that she would never have been able to communicate with. And she realizes what life and death are all about. We all look at
how connected everything is.
Everything is connected.
Yes.
And what you have to do is go about everything with a loving heart.
Yes.
And and you go through life that way, and you're doing pretty good, but there's, for people like us, we have to know everything. So it's the quest for knowledge.
Yes.
Is a huge part of the journey, because we have to know. And that's because we're wired to, we already know. So I think for us, we already know, and not that we're trying to prove it to the world, but that we're trying to.
You're supposed to bring it forward.
We're supposed to bring it forward and at least document it and do what you can. And people have to make their own decisions. Look, there are a lot of idiots out there that are, it's nonsense, whatever. And they're closed-minded, and you're never going to change their minds. But what I tell people is go out and have your own experiences. Go to Gettysburg. Don't listen to me. You can read all the stories that I wrote about Gettysburg. Go.
Yeah.
And see what happens. Open up and see what happens. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with anyone else in the book. It's all about you. It's all about what you experience, because that defines your paradigm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I've rambled, Michelle. It's a long story, and
that's why you're here. We're here to listen to you ramble.
There's stuff I haven't told you that I can't tell you as far as names. I can.
Of course.
I mean, it just can't happen. Like, at one day, my hope is that I actually meet this person again that we talked about at the airport, and that we're making a film together, because I think that's what it was all about. And I think that will happen in some way, shape, or form. I just don't know when, but I'm okay with that.
You know what? If it's meant to happen, it will. And
Right.
you're in a much more evolved situation right now than what you were in that moment in time. That whole moment can recreate itself, and you would handle it a whole way different.
Right.
You probably would walk up to her and say, "Pardon me for staring.
Yeah.
However,"
Yeah, and then
like,
at some point you just gotta lay it on the line. But again, I don't wanna be
yeah.
on the front cover of
No.
rag magazine being arrested.
Yes.
So yeah, you gotta be really
For sure.
careful with that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Nowadays, especially, you do. But
yeah,
one thing I've learned, with anything that the universe is involved in, there's no such thing as coincidences. Everything is a synchronicity. It's like the language, universal language, and it's how it communicates with you through frequency, vibration, numbers, visuals, music. Sometimes you're going through, I'll see certain things, like I'll hear a certain song, and maybe you're going to hear a little bit more than you would normally hear. It's like, what is up with that? And I think about what it was happening in my life at that time, that I could hear this and go, you know what? Yes, I've got that. This
right.
makes sense. I mean, I'll be playing cards, and the same freaking card keeps coming up, like, this is ridiculous. I go and Google it, and it goes, oh, well, it means this or this or this, because people used to read, my grandmother used to read playing cards long before she read, like, never read tarots. It was just like, it was reading cards. So you could go, you could find this stuff and go, well, that's interesting, but there's always a whole universal language, and you just have to know how to interpret it, or at least recognize it.
Absolutely.
You
And
know?
that's the key. The key is to recognize those things, recognize synchronicity, recognize your intuition.
Yeah.
There's so much more to
Yeah.
life,
Yes.
right? It
My
really
brother
is.
John. I know.
It's a wondrous life, right?
Yeah.
They say it's a wonderful life, but it's wondrous. There's this unbelievable universe that we're part of,
Yes. It
and
is.
there's so many mysteries. There's so many things we don't know. We cannot be arrogant.
Mhm.
We can't be, and sometimes the
Humble.
smarter
Always
you
be
are and the
humble.
more educated, the more arrogant you get, because then
Yes.
you're like, you have blinders on.
Yes.
So it's only your way or the highway of what
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
No one knows. Science is always changing, right? It's
Yes.
always evolving. Science is a fluid thing. It's not like, okay, things have
Yes.
changed over the years with science. Now it's quantum, right?
Quantum everything, and I think we all go through stages as we evolve. The energy changes. I do energy work, planetary energy work. I work with people all over the world, and we've worked with um the consciousness, the whole human consciousness. I've
Mm.
tested the theory many times, and you work on it, then all you've got to do is just sit and watch social media, watch the news, and watch how things flow and change. It's just amazing how, again, connected we all really are. But we all tend to have, some people are highly gifted mediums. Like I said, I've worked with some unbelievable mediums throughout the world on many different projects, many different things. I've had people reach out to me and give me incredible information just out of the blue, just truly gifted people out there. Then there's people who don't realize they're gifted or don't practice it, but are gifted in other ways and contribute in other ways. I think in your film, you can bring those abilities, or you can bring those talents to the screen. You can put this information out in the physical sense, because people really seem to need physical things to look at. It's easier to grasp. It's easier to absorb.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. You're totally right. It's awesome, Michelle. I got to give you credit. Like, you're always dead on. Like, you get it,
Mm.
and then we have these conversations, and it's like you really put things in perspective. And I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's just all part of the learning process. I've been doing this since I was a child. So, and I come from a type of family um, that people really, they're all wide open. Like, I didn't have the kind of parents that, tried to hide it from me. If I saw somebody, they would say, okay, they would show old photos without leading me, saying, anybody look familiar? Or based on the descriptions that I would give. My father kind of got weird about it. No. It was, always was a natural explanation. And then as, I'm an adult, and all of a sudden my dad's like, oh yeah, we saw this and I saw this and UFOs and oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what the freaking hell is that about? I felt like I was a crazy child. Oh, did I do that? Yes, and hell you freaking did. So anyway, oh, look who made it to the party.
Oh my goodness gracious.
He made a hatch.
Wow.
Miss anything?
Better late than ever. I just told the whole story. I mean, you can fill in the blanks. Hey, listen, I feel like did I tell too much? I mean, was I okay with this?
Did he leave you anything? Sorry.
No, I thought what was most interesting in listening to it, what the color that I would add to it is that as adjacent to this journey that you've been on, I've witnessed this transformation of you going through this process. And I can honestly say that, for lack of a better phrase, it's like there's been this transformation, this leveling up, this, I wouldn't even say it's like a connection, but it's a remembering of your intuition, some things that you probably always knew on a soul level, but in this life had been distracted by it in whatever ways possible. But now you're not. You're dialed in ways that you've never been before. So it's kind of interesting to just sit back and watch it all and hear it all.
Right, and that's exactly what's happened a lot. And don't get me wrong, John's had amazing experiences. But what's funny is, like, when this was happening at the airport, John, I'm almost positive I called you.
Oh, you were a mess, an absolute mess.
I can't describe how much of a mess I was. It just doesn't.
First it was texts, and then what does it say? You left the chat and got on the camera. And
thinking, how do we do that?
What? Huh? What?
What's happening? I can't see any comments, so I'm just like,
because you left the chat and got on camera. You're moving up fast, brother.
Oh, that's funny.
Who else wants to come in? Come on down.
Who's next?
Yeah.
No, but at that moment, first it was a text, and then it was a phone call, and it really was this. I can't believe what's happening. I can't believe this. And I remember one of the things, like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? I don't want to come across as a creep. But I'm also incapacitated and frozen, but this is, and he had talked about her specifically during the course of the time that we were in LA, which was only a couple of days. So it was a very interesting thing, but I think that was like a catalyst. It really was a catalyst. And that kind of changed everything. The one thing that I would add in there is that as a result of that, you had always wanted to do this. You had always been a fan of the Wild West. And you had talked for going back 10, 15 years about women of the Wild West. And then as a result of that connection or that experience, it kind of spurred you on to do additional research into that. And lo and behold, again, not going to reveal any names, that person is connected to the Wild West.
All right.
And it kind of like synchronicity is in play here because it was meant to happen the way that it happened. And there's a certain someone, Jack, that will probably be kicking you in the shin soon. So
no, I imagine that. Listen, I mean, the listeners in this show are not newbies. Maybe some are, and God help them if this is their first show. But it's you learn reincarnation is real. Now, I always want, you always as a kid, some good at this, and you hear these stories about the Far East and all these kids and the birthmarks, and like, there's something to it. Dr. Ian Stevenson, again, University of Virginia, brilliant guy, wrote all these books, and he was convinced. But when you experience it yourself, and the reincarnation is real, soul groups are real, soul mates are real. and there's little nuances within that, but that's what we've learned. And again, I'm not here to convince anyone of it, but I can tell you, and I tell people who might be grieving, that consciousness survives death. Your loved ones are not gone.
No.
You will see them again.
And what's the unfortunate thing with all of that is that we've been so conditioned by the human experience based on what we've been told. I mean, we're at our purest form before we start going to school and being, deprogrammed. We are pure energy, pure soul, pure love, pure light when we first enter this earthbound experience. And then that's all taken away through programming or deprogramming or influencing. And whether you're born on one side of the planet versus the other is how you're affected. But at the end of the day, if you choose to kind of step out of the human experience and think about it from a spiritual perspective, which we've done a hell of a lot more over the last several years, it provides a tremendous level of comfort, because we all come from source, whatever you want to call that source, whether it's God or energy, whatever that is, we all come from source, and we're all returning to source to be recycled and or help others on their journey through earthbound or other planetary or other dimensional realms. So when you think about it from that point of view, it's so comforting to know that we're connected in ways that we limit ourselves based on what we the foundational things that we're taught in the human experience. And through connections that we've had with psychics and including some experiences with Heather Besser, we've had complete 100% skeptics who have had connections to spirit and soul energy. This is changing. It changes the people. They're no longer skeptical because they're delivered messages which are validated 100% that only they would know, and it brings them tremendous level of peace and an awareness that it was one person in particular. I'll just share a little story. She really wanted to connect with her daughter, wound up connecting with her daughter, but her daughter was in the spirit realm, was already doing her thing in the spirit realm, and wasn't connecting with the mom in the way that the mom like missed her and couldn't wait to talk to her. And she was like, "Mom, can't wait for you to get here because it's awesome. I got to go because I'm on adventures and I'm going to go do more things. Talk to you later."
Going to do spirit things.
But then there's tremendous comfort in knowing that that's a possibility, that I will connect with that energy again and share that energy in a way that I remember it from a human perspective. But I think the hardest part, and I know we're going real metaphysical here, is that we only look at things from a human perspective while we're human. And as we evolve spiritually, we may connect to it on a different level. Consciousness survives death. I think Jack and I firmly believe that based on our experiences and what we've learned over the years. Then you start thinking about the spirit, the energy existence from the spirit side, which is much more comforting, in my opinion, than it is saying, let me be controlled by religious dogma, or let me be controlled by the way that I was raised and the messages that I was given, which create fear or control, versus a view of all possibilities, what is possible. And I think in spirit form and energy form, everything is possible.
100%.
And that's something that I kind of get jazzed about. Jack and I joke about is like, we're, can't wait to get there. Not that we want to go soon, but when we're there, it's going to be fine. We're not.
Maybe you just need to remember that you're there. Do you really think when you go to sleep at night that you just lay in the body? You travel.
No.
I come back sometimes more tired than I was when I fell asleep. I'm just like, somebody kept me working all freaking night. That's exactly how I feel.
It's fun. Jack and I have talked about, Jack's had a lot of dreams and I don't want to say visions, but like imagery that's been kind of percolating. And Jack, I've even had a chance to talk with you about this, but I have shared over the years that I really don't dream a lot. I know that I do, but I don't remember it. It's nothing significant. But recently, and I shared one of these stories with you, Jack, is that there was one particular woman that was in a dream that I woke up 2 or 3 different times during the night. And I know I got up because I woke up. It wasn't like I was dreaming that I got up. I got up, got something to drink one time, got up because it was earlier in the morning, went to the bathroom. And every time I went back to sleep, the person came back in a dream. So it was the same. It was under different circumstances. And I don't remember any specific details of what the encounter was. But I remember waking up and being like, oh, that this person was in multiple dreams over the course of the same night. And it wasn't somebody that I knew. And it happened again the other night, Jack, that I had, woke up 2 or 3 times and returned to, this wasn't a person in this one, but it was like I picked up the dream where I left off. So it's kind of like, so just within the last couple of weeks, my dreams have been more, I've been more aware of my dreams than I have in the past, which I feel like that's an energetic connection as well. And a remembering more than I might be tuning into it a little bit more than I had in the past because of all the stuff that's been happening to us, which is kind of cool.
Do you find that because you travel a lot, Jon, and you live in areas for certain pockets of time, do you find that maybe some areas are more apt to let you, let's say, travel or make those connections as opposed to other areas that, let's say, are more populated? So you have just more energy, energy. We don't mean to drain the life out of everything, but it's just,
it's
life keeps busy. That's how it is.
The one thing that I've learned more than anything in our travels is that you can take somebody who lives in a first world country, and if they're comfortable in that and you take them to a third world country, the immediate response is, oh, I feel so bad for them.
Yeah.
And that like they're living in squalor, these poor conditions. But we've been fortunate, my wife and I, as we've traveled, we've stayed in countries, I wouldn't say third world countries, but developing countries that have pockets of poverty and pockets of less developed areas. But the people there are extremely happy.
Yeah.
They're not miserable. We project that because we say that's miserable. If that's something that all they've ever known, and they're happy in that space, and they're present in that space, and they don't think beyond today, because today is what's here. That's what I'm focused on. Correct. The simplicity that I've experienced as a result of that has really been kind of a connecting me from the mindset of an American traveling abroad to a global citizen. And a global citizen looks at the world differently than somebody who's traveling through it.
Yes.
And I appreciate the simplicity much more than I ever did before, because someone could be completely content doing something they love, and it could be just, whittling wood and creating little, things for tourists, and they love it. And you can see the passion that they have for it. And they don't aspire to be anything more than that, because that's okay, in the situation that they're in. But that's been probably the biggest thing for me. And I think from a soul journey perspective, that just is an affirmation that we're all the same. I mean, I can look at it from, if you're from a different state or a different country or a different side of the world or a different part of the galaxy, or a different part of the universe, or connected to the spirit realm versus the human realm, or the ET realm versus the human realm. It's all the same thing. It's no different. But I find tremendous comfort and kind of like a knowing or an awareness that we all come from the same source. We're all in this together.
I think as we evolve, we need less. Like, I've been very fortunate to come from a good life, a privilege. I've traveled my entire life. I have lived a life that many people would say, geez, God, that it's just like this amazing thing. And I've been very, very privileged to do so, but it's been very humbling. And I find as my journey has continued forward that none of that seems to matter. Some of my best memories in my travels have been to these places exactly as you mentioned it. I love to go back to places that take me back in time, to a more simple time. I've spent time like in parts of Egypt that were quiet. I've been gone to parts of Romania where time has stood still. When I'm looking at people still walking around along the Nile with baskets on their head, right, in Cairo, in this big metropolis, and you just see that in some parts of it, it's so simplistic. And I always find peace in the mountains. That's my place. It's the mountains. No matter where I travel, I end up in the mountains. It's just
same.
But don't we all, right? Don't we all gravitate to places that we feel drawn to, maybe from past life connections, or maybe something that's supposed to take us there in the now, but we just don't know it yet. And you just feel like you have to be there.
Yeah. And you again follow your intuition on that.
Yeah.
Also people who have been fascinated with civilizations, right? Like, I've always been fascinated with the ancient Greeks.
Oh, I love Greece.
People always been
fascinated
with feudal Japan.
Yes.
Why would you be fascinated with feudal Japan, right? Yeah. and more often than not, it's they had a couple lives there, or at least one, and you're just, there's that connection it's in there, right? It might not be conscious, but it's definitely subconscious.
Yes. But that's just part of the whole thing. You just instinctively know what you're supposed to do. And
in places and people speak to you, like Jack was saying, you kind of know.
Yes.
When you meet somebody or you connect to somebody, you kind of know that they're. I would say the same with you, Michelle. Didn't know you from a hole in the wall a year and a half ago. And an instant connection, easy connection, and
thank you.
And an acknowledgement. This flow of information is validating, and especially for you, because you talk to people from all walks, all over the world, involved with probably some of the most bizarre things on the planet.
I know. We all have our specialties.
Yeah, and you're connected to a lot of that because of the energy that you put out and the energy that you attract. And I think, I think a lot of people who are not present don't realize that, obviously the people that are listening to this are most likely connected to that energy, to that knowing, to that, to knowing that it's important to look at the simple things and to pull back. But too many people are focused on the grind. And the grind is just, it tears your soul apart.
And I agree. And I get that sometimes you can't walk away from that because it's livelihood, it's survival. But even in the worst times, there has to be a few moments in the day, because my schedule is it's ridiculous. Like one day melds into the next for me at times. And, Wayne will say to me, can you just take 5 minutes or 10 minutes and just put your feet up and meditate, do something, tap into, but I said, but I'm always like tapped in I'm tapped into something. But it's not always peaceful because my mind, it's like I want, and I have that need to learn, right? It's like Jack was saying earlier, once you freaking know, and you just have to keep it going. Right? It just doesn't stop. The wheels are always going.
And I think we've learned this through the docs that we've made and talking to people that had the unexplained pregnancy experiences, is they don't know how to communicate their experiences with people who have never had those experiences. But when they're around people who have, instant community, instant connection. They have a shared story, a shared interest, a shared experience. And when they find, and that's why I think it's so important to find community. And that's one of probably the biggest lesson from that film, Jack, was that we helped people who had no one to talk to realize that there were people just like them. And we had, probably close to 1,000 people reach out to us after that film came out. saying thank you for helping me realize I'm not alone. Thank you for making me realize that my experience isn't crazy. The person that had the XYZ experience in your movie is exactly what happened to me. Now I need to find somebody that can help me understand why, because they lived in isolation for so long because they had no one to really talk to about it. Because as in that film, it talked about if I share my experience with somebody and they don't understand or they reject me, I'm traumatized all over again.
But how many people are you dealing with? I think certain generations. I grew up in a very open psychic family where, except for my dad who tried to make me look crazy, but no, we'll let that one go. Anyway, Dad admits everything on his deathbed. Oh yeah, shut up, Dad. But anyway, how I grew up though saying, well, you shouldn't really tell people, the neighbors might think we're crazy. Because we know stuff. But they didn't want the neighbors knowing that. So how many people do you find that you were communicating with or who are coming to you because they feel they can confide in you because it was suppressed or they were suppressed? They were not allowed to really go to people and talk about it.
One of the things that happened with that is that because I've never had that experience.
Yes.
My response to that was, you need to seek people who you can connect with, who have had similar experiences or can help you process and understand your experience. So we put together a web site on our page on our website with contact information for people who do support groups and things like that, and encourage people that reached out to us to connect with somebody that could help them. Some people would respond and say, well, I can't afford to do something like that. We still would turn them on to the people and they would get the help they needed.
Yeah.
It's just that they never thought that they could. And once you realize that you're not alone in an experience, that you're not an outsider, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who've had similar experiences as you. And when people start to realize that, I think it changes the way that they look at their situation, but also appreciate that they're not alone. And I also think, one of the parts about our film, that one film, is that we were encouraging people to be to empathize and show empathy in situations where you might not understand it. You don't understand cancer if you didn't have it and die from it, but you're there to help and soothe and be there for people who are experiencing something that you can't understand. And we kind of wanted to do the same thing, with that. But I know this has gone off on a little bit of a tangent.
But this is pretty much what it's about, is your experiences, which led you to want to bring this to the screen. It's like, what I was saying earlier with Jack is just that you have truly gifted people all over the world. You have people who have abilities who don't want to acknowledge them, or they just don't have them, or they don't feel they have them. You have those who do have them, but then you have people who are like yourselves who have everything on the spectrum, which is great. But it's going the extra mile because people seem to need a physical. They need to see something in the physical. So you're putting it on screen so they can look at it, they can grasp it. Some people are visual learners more than anything. So if they see it, they're like, okay. It's like that person that goes to a medium, and the medium gifted, who's just can give you all kinds of information. But there are those people like they don't need to use cards. They're gifted mediums. They'll just give it to you. They don't need to use cards. But the individual understands it and can grasp it better if they have something to look at. Right. And I think that's
a good point. Never thought of that.
Yeah. See, and that's something that you guys provide.
Right. And I think with all the writing we're doing now, and which is almost exclusively in the screenplay realm, every one of those stories, and there's different genres, but they all have a spiritual
undertone.
Without question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what genre. We cross genres. Western, we're working on the Western first. Yes. But we got a horror, we got a meta, we have a very meta drama, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's always that, it's about connection. There's always that thing in it. And I think that resonates with people, which is why we want to get these to screen, because we really feel like, not only for us personally, it's like, oh, we're doing what we really, we're doing more of what we want to do, but it's always about sharing with others. And the documentaries, it was more straightforward, right? Because we're talking about specific things. We're talking about ETs. We're talking about, what did she say? I have to study.
Knowing Heather, she's being sarcastic to the point where she's going to show you a stick figure.
Yeah. And by the way, her little, what do you call the photo that she has there? Her, that I gave that to her. That's my favorite character.
Kudos for using it.
So she's stealing my stuff.
That's okay.
Unbelievable.
That's okay. Who wore it better?
But but with the docs, like it's straightforward, right? We're sharing information, but in the films, within these stories and the narratives, there's strong messages.
Yeah, messages are there for the taking.
Yeah.
All right.
It's entertainment, great storytelling. That's something that we pride ourselves on. But there are messages of, I would say, remembering, acknowledging, knowing, encouragement, strength. They're there. They're all there. And we're not doing these to deliver messages, but you can't help when you're doing these type of stories that are coming from these personal experiences that we've had. They kind of work their way in because they're so deeply imprinted in our DNA that we can't help but have those things, rise up.
And what's great storytelling in the end? It's people's journeys. So because we can all relate to it, whether we're watching a documentary about something we're really interested in, or we're going to see a movie that somehow we relate to a character. Right. And it could be different character for every person in the theater or who's watching at home. Like there's always that character that you relate to the most. And it's entertaining. Like Jon said, it's entertainment, right? You're laughing, you're crying, you're emoting, but at the same time, it's this universal kind of understanding of why we're alive. And I think when you go through the things that we go through and you're on these types of journeys, you have a much clearer understanding of why we're alive. And a lot of times you just want to share that, and I think that's our goal, and we got, we're working on all these screenplays, but we're still working on several documentary ideas. They're all fascinating. It's always, we're always getting really cool stuff, but and there's always a sense of mystery surrounding whatever documentaries, we're doing, but
well, the research is always the most exciting part.
And Michelle, because you've been involved, you've been working with us on some ideas, and we've had a lot of fun just talking to certain people about how we can develop those ideas, right? So,
and it goes to show you, doesn't it, just how much is out there. I'll tell you, I spent 2 decades in front of a camera, and yet I did all this work behind the camera. And people who always strive, I always want to be in front of the camera. I'm just like, the best part is being behind the scenes. I love the research. When things come to me, I'm just like, oh my God, this is real. Even though I've been in this field for so long, just because of what we've been talking about recently, I think to myself, you just get that one place or that one story, that one person where everything we've been talking about tonight, everything comes together as one. It's all connected. The place, the people, the culture, the lore, everybody's experiencing it. And you start realizing that the similarity between the cultures have the same stuff. Like it's just mind-blowing to me when you really tap it and you really start digging into it. And I think as we evolve more and further along, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but even in the style of your writing, in the style of how you want to portray something, your evolution, like it shows in your work, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? You guys could probably look at your project and go, well, this was around the time this happened. Yep. This happened after this because this was a catalyst for this. Like, you could probably peg a timeline of your work based on some of the things that you've experienced.
Sure. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And for me, it's been an interesting journey because Jack has been fascinated by paranormal, ufology, and unexplained mysteries going back to childhood. And it wasn't something that I spent a lot of time processing. So as I got exposed to some of the things that he was passionate about, I was an outsider looking in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able, as a storyteller, to take on the mantle of the common person who doesn't know a lot about this, because I wasn't well educated, well versed in these subject matter. So my process when I was going through the interviewing and thinking about the stories was, well, I don't know this. I'm sure other people don't know it either.
Mm-hmm.
Let's explore this a little bit more from the outsider looking in, rather than the insider who is speaking to the audience that already believes and knows and understands. So it's created, so on that journey, I've learned so much about myself and also about the human experience and I don't want to say what's wrong with it, but what creates obstacles when you focus solely on the human experience. The connections to people who have opened our eyes, the people that we've met along this journey, it's been profound. And now it's kind of part of who we are.
Yes.
We joke around a lot with Heather because we talk with her and have experiences with her on a regular basis, to the point where it's still mind-blowing, but it's happened so frequently that I would never say we take it for granted. Not at all, but every single time something happens, it's jaw-dropping. It's a learning experience. Messages sometimes are, confirming or affirming. They're also send you on, quests of your own, doing research, or in the dream space, things that happen in our subconscious that are moving us along this I guess I would say this growth chart, this evolution of our knowing.
Yes.
That to me, I mean, it's hard, there's not a lot of people. We can't talk to a ton of people about this. It's not like you're going to sit down at a coffee shop and start talking about this stuff.
But you might be surprised how many people would actually start talking with you. I think people there's so much of it, and some stuff is coming to the surface. I think people are looking for answers that are outside the norm, because the norm hasn't really worked for them.
Well, I agree. And I think that one of the things that happens is you'll be at I like to call them mainstream gatherings.
Yeah.
To be a work event. Everyone's buttoned up, right? They have their 8 walls in front of them. And you'll be having a conversation, and then it's like, and you tell them what you do, right? Or I wrote a book about Ghost of Gettysburg, or I do this, or I made films about UFOs. And it's amazing how these very buttoned up people knowing that they know that you're going to be accepting of what their experiences might be. They almost all of them have a story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they might not say, at the time, I didn't know, I wasn't sure. I try to, debunk it in my head, right? Because I was raised that way and blah, blah, blah. But they always will mention it, knowing that what you do now, because they know they have an empathetic ear listening.
Exactly.
And at the very least, I'm going to listen and be like, man, that's really cool. And, when you have more experiences, just be open to it. Follow that intuition. Don't run away, and listen, at that airport that day, I could have said that nonsense. Yeah. That was just a coincidence. And that would have been the end of it. but there was no way. And I was on a journey already that was not going to allow me. My higher self would never allow me to do that. It was not going to allow my ego to do that. And I was understanding exactly what was happening in that moment, and I couldn't let it go ever. I won't let it go ever, and it's been really great, really great for what's going on here.
Heather just posted utter nonsense.
What's utter nonsense? What are these comments? Like, what's going on here?
This is good stuff. It's all the world happening.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Yeah. There's all of the world going on in the chat room.
Yeah. So, all right. Well,
yeah. And one thing too that we've experienced, and to a certain extent, you have to be in those moments, not necessarily seeking those people out, but you share something, and when the door opens, you have the conversation, because there's been a lot of people that we've met over the last 15 years as a result of sharing some of the things that we've experienced and obviously what we've documented in our films, where they're like, I can't talk to anybody in my family about this. I can't talk to my spouse about this. I can't talk to anybody. But the fact that you guys are sharing this information, I now know that I do have people that I can talk to. I had a former friend, or not a former friend, but a friend that I haven't seen in a long time, share a story with me that her husband, she was sharing a story at a dinner party once about a UFO, an abduction scenario that she felt she may have had. And her husband later that night said, can we just moving forward not bring up the UFOs at dinner parties?
Wow.
Which kind of closes that door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure in that moment she was like, wow, my trusted partner is telling me that I can't be my authentic self.
That's hard.
That's hard.
That's really hard. Yeah. But I think some people have difficulty grasping, we were at a place one time visiting, and the topic of ghosts came up, and we overheard this person saying, look, ghosts are one thing. And then when aliens came up, ghosts are one thing. I could do that, but I can't do aliens, and I just won't go there. Like, there's just this fine line where people just are okay with one part of the spectrum, but their minds will just not let them go any further than that.
It's fear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Total fear. All right. Guys, I got to get my computer's about to die, so I'm going to run and get a cable. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'll drop you out. Go ahead. Yeah. There we go. It was in the green room. So, okay.
Well, I'm glad I was able to get connected. The power was out for almost an hour and a half, which was so bizarre because it's the first thunderstorm of the year here.
Yeah.
It has been dry as a bone. The last time I think it drizzled was in December.
Wow.
So it's been a long, long time. And then, of course, the power goes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, all is well.
Of all nights, but that's good.
Yeah. And I was just kind of like, what?
Yeah. Now?
But it was like I said earlier, it was interesting to kind of listen to Jack tell the story, because most of the times when he's doing that, I'm with him. When we've been on shows and we're talking about this path that we've been on together.
Yes.
To listen to it, from his perspective and seeing that transformation. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed this connection that he's made over the course of the last 2-3 years, or really started about, I'll go back like 15 years ago. He would talk about, do you ever think something's missing, that you're not connected with the right people in your life, that someone comes in and you're like, oh, this is it, and no, they're not really it. Or and then you're kind of like, there's just something else out there. And then when he had that experience at the airport, that kind of facilitated this rapid evolution and connection to that level of awareness.
Yes.
And it kind of gave him the opportunity to say, my intuition is correct. I need to find, and he's more intuitive now than he was 2 years ago. I mean, I've seen this significant shift in growth, and it's kind of fascinating to watch, because it's kind of like, I want some of that juju.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they say if you are put in certain situations all the time. Like people, for example, who live in a haunted house, who maybe have never really had any experiences before, but things are happening all the time. So your senses are heightened and you become more aware and you start paying more attention. And next thing you know, you start having more and more experiences, you know. But let me ask you guys this. I mean, you've had all these paranormal experiences, you've seen, you know, for example, UFO. Do you think you are ET experiencers as far as being taken?
Yeah,
Laugh says it all. No.
More recent events, but John, you want to take this one?
I would say that that the chances of us having an experience based on what we've
I'll have to finish the thought.
I think so.
Another lightning strike.
I think so. I think he's down. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were, be honest, I think that when we were working on our first documentary about what happened, you know, the abduction of a particular person, that we were being monitored then.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, once you're in, you're in. And I think that, I think at this point we know that we're still being monitored. There's no question about it. So, yeah, I would say that I never would have said, up until about 6 months ago, I never would have said that I was an experiencer from that standpoint.
Yes.
But I think now, I think the answer would probably be yes.
Yes. I think so. I think everything that you have experienced, you know, I mean, there is a belief that if you are brought into this, it's like a catch-22. Either you're brought into it because you're an experiencer, or either you're in it and you attract and you end up, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, exactly.
Yeah, that I don't know. I think the best is yet to come, personally.
I agree. And I think that, you know, my hope, you know, we live in a world that's, it seems like we're devolving.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I agree. And I hope that through some of this universal consciousness, this paradigm shift, hopefully this better understanding, this evolution of, you know, understanding why we're here. And it's not all about greed and ego, but it's all about love and giving. So right now, and some countries are worse than others, we're horrible, meaning the United States, where I am. But it's a horror show. And I think that ego and greed are winning over, and the people who are like that are in power because they're tend to be more aggressive in their pursuit of that greed. And
you're in the position to be able to do it, you know. And unfortunately, unless you're going back to a more primitive time, I think this is where we have to start letting go. It's one example of letting go of the physical, and power is out again. Poor John. Poor guy. Yeah. But that's okay, because we're nearing the top of the hour. So at least it cut out just in time.
Right. There you go.
But I think with everything going on, it just reiterates that we do need to get back to simpler times, and we do need to you know what, stop yearning for things that are so material.
Yeah.
Because we have to live beyond the material. We're not meant to need all of the material. We need to evolve past all of that, because you can't take it with you. Right. And we all came into this world the same way. You know, we all end up going back out, hopefully, you know, down the same road. So, you know, we need to factor that in. So, you know, Jack, tell us what you guys have coming up. What's going on? Where can people find you? So on and so forth.
Well, good news is that, you know, for a little while, the documentaries we found a new distributor. It's actually one of the guys we had worked with early on, the same guy we went out to LA to meet all those years ago.
Okay.
He started his own, because he left this other place and started his own with these other guys as a distribution company, really strong one. Yes. So our titles are up again. So what I would tell people is just type the titles in.
Yes.
And so you get the Extraordinary series. So people are going to be able to watch them, if not right now, very soon.
I highly recommend them.
Yeah, we're proud of them. We really are. You don't have to watch them in order, but I would, because it kind of takes you on a journey from one man's experience to, like, and then it goes through. It's like A to Z, without banging people over the head too quickly with stuff. So I would start with the Stan Romanek Story, then go to the seeding, then go to Revelations. Yes. But where I've been, the last 2 months I've been doing nothing but writing. So I've been writing these scripts, and we're developing the first one. So the Western, it's called Etta, and it's about the life of Etta Place. Wow, real character, right? From Butch and Sundance, and that incredible story, and that group of people who were, by the way, a soul group, and did these really amazing things in that time period. Yes. And so that's the one we're working on developing first. So we're developing that, and as you know, Michelle, we're also working on developing a couple of documentary projects. And as you know, these things take time.
They do, but they're going to be fantastic.
Yes. And you get on more phone calls, and then you get on more phone calls.
It's true.
Everything has to kind of fall into place, but we're moving forward in a major way. And, and we'll come on the show and give people updates, but right now it's just an exciting time. There's a lot happening, and it's just, and a lot personally for each of us on this journey that we've been on. It's definitely, that part of the journey is the part that really means the most.
Yes.
Is the personal growth part of it. Like, you're doing all these things.
Yeah.
Right. And you're making films, you're writing books, you're writing screenplays.
Yeah.
But as that's happening, something's happening to you. As you're doing
you're growing.
To you.
Growing,
and that the goal in life is to learn and grow and evolve, and understand why we're here. And I know this is so simplistic and trite, but it's really all about love. And it's so hard for us to wrap we make things so difficult.
I know,
it's our egos. And if you just wake up every day, if you woke up one day and said, I'm going to spread love wherever I go, I'm going to put a smile on people's face, I'm going to be as friendly as can be, I'm going to give people hugs, do it one day and see what happens.
It's tough. You'll laugh at me because I always say the same thing, because I can do shadow work and I can do light work. I enjoy doing both for different reasons, but I get this road rage thing, and I'll be blah 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 blah. Then I'll go love and light, love and light, and I'll just fan it off. Love and light, love and light. Okay, could you just F off? Love and light.
Yeah, right.
I do. It's terrible. Wayne just laughs at me, and now it's at a point where he'll be like blah blah blah, and he'll go love and light. Fan that energy over there, because it's just, or sometimes I'll just say, bugger off, and I say it with love.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll be saying, like, to myself, now I'm like, well, why aren't these people evolving? And then I realize how awful a thing that is to say, because I'm acting as if I'm superior, and I'm not. So you're always learning that humility, you always learn. And that's because our egos are so strong. Our brains and our ego are so forefront. That we have to kind of really tune into our higher selves. So I go, you can ask my wife, I go around the city and scream at people in my car. I mean, everyone's a moron. Everyone's an idiot. Everyone's a Neanderthal, right? It's like, why am I even here? Why do I bother? Right? Like, I don't need this. Right. But then I have to realize, like, whoa, that's the ego. I got to be better about this. So we're always learning, and it's hard. It's hard to do what I just said. But man, I'll tell you what, I've gotten good with, especially like I go out to eat at restaurants and stuff. I make an effort to put
Always
a
kind
smile.
to people. Restaurants, drive-throughs, always.
And you'll see them
Sometimes
change because they have bad attitudes.
it's true.
Right? A lot of people just have bad attitudes at work.
It's
But
true.
and sometimes it doesn't work, but I'll tell you what, more often than not, it does.
It does. Pay it forward too. Whatever the case may be, pay it forward. It was so much fun having you guys on. Poor John was short-lived. He got a good amount of time in there. He did all right.
Well, I hope we're not boring your listeners.
No,
sure.
no, but this is what it's all about, right? The journey to just discovery and to bringing it to the forefront for people to see it, and I love that, and it's been a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun, and everybody chat. You guys are awesome, and those listening, please, whichever platform you're watching us on, please, subscribe, share, like, follow, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you all so very much, and there we go, Agent. Thank you. See, great conversation to listen to. You guys are love. Our people love you. So tomorrow night, guys, Don Yazzie returns. He's now a fellow host here at the UPRN network of Don't Whistle at Night, which is Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. He's coming back for part 2, which is delving deeper into the mysteries of the Navajo Nation. And I'll tell you how it came to be is just because we talked after the fact. I was like, I forgot to say this. I forgot to say this. I had this story. I had this story. I'm like, oh my God. It's just a gift that keeps on giving. And he's just awesome. His show is awesome. He's growing. So tune in, show him some love. Next Tuesday on Beyond the Outer Realm, our sister show, Bart Sharp, also fellow host of Becoming Quantum Conscious on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. He's coming to join us from the south of France. He spends a few months of the year there. He does the Mary Magdalene tours out there. Super, super popular tour. It has just gotten so big, which says a lot of what Jack and I and John and I were talking about tonight is this evolution. This thing is just taken off like wildfire. But we're going to be talking about In Search of the Christos and Goddess Consciousness, because it seems to be making a resurgence. The goddess Sophia. People are starting to dig and dig. And holy crud, things are happening and things are shifting, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be awesome. So we shall see you all tomorrow night, of course, for Dawn and Jack, John, you guys, come on. You don't have to thank me. You'll be back.
We do though. You're so genuinely the best hostess of all time, and we really appreciate your having us on so we can talk about these things. So.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and we know we'll do it again. We'll do it again. We all love you guys. So thank you all, and we shall see you tomorrow evening. Have a great evening. Good night.